We are maybe the same person.
Yeah, we're definitely variants of each other.
Yeah, maybe this is why I like clones so much. Am one. Of course, I know me.
The clone.
Welcome back to Rebels Revisited. I have a special guest with me this time. This is Emily, at Cassian Andorable, my good friend. Say hello.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here.
And we're so excited. We're gonna talk about twin sons. Here we go.
This is a good one, y'all. I mean, twin sons. Come on.
One of the greatest episodes in the whole series. One of the greatest moments in the entire Star Wars canon.
So
here we go. This is Twin Sons Revisited. So, first off, the opening.
Oh my gosh, that opening monologue. Unmatched.
You know what? We're gonna roll the clip. And
we can't explain how good that monologue is. You have to see it. You have to hear it yourself.
So, here it is.
Lost. I am lost. And yet, I can feel his presence. So close, so close. I can see him in my mind's eye. Kenobi. Kenobi! Will it end here? Like this? No. No! I must draw Kenobi out. Tempt his noble heart. But how? How? I know. I know.
That is just, it's phenomenal. Like,
what an opening.
Just the voice acting in that. Like, I feel like I need to clarify here, talking about this episode, that I hate the character Maul. Like, I can't stand him. I see him and I feel like visceral rage. But that being said, first of all, I will say objectively, he is very well written, but that's not what we're talking about right now. So we'll talk about that later. But the voice acting is so phenomenal that I can't even be mad when he shows up, even though I hate him. I can't be mad because I get lost in the performance.
Just to listen.
It's just so good.
To him. Sam Witwer really,
man, goes off.
Like he just goes into the studio and does that.
And he just does that. Like, how do you just stand in front of a microphone and just do that?
I always wonder, what would it be like to be Sam Witwer and roll up to the studio and do that? Like, what is it like to be him?
No, I can't even imagine. Like just to have that much like raw talent inside you. Like, I mean, it's amazing. It's unbelievable.
And just the whole thing with like the visuals, like we've got like all of those like sweeping desert visuals.
Yes, and the score is really good for that like, part too. Just like everything really comes together.
You watch that opening and you know that like we're like, this is the next level now. You know that we're like, you watch the first minute and you're like, series high right here.
Exactly. Like you know like this is gonna be something special. This is not just some ordinary episode. Anyway. No, everything came together. The visuals, the voice acting, the score, it all just really came together to be just like this perfect opening. And it really like sets the tone for like the rest of the episode. It's just so well done. It's so well done.
And of course, like the iconic Kenobi. That like rightfully went down in history, that one.
As it should.
Sam Witwer just like destroying a microphone.
I wonder if his throat hurt after that, because it makes my throat hurt listening to it. Like my throat hurts hearing him do that. Like,
he probably knows how to do it so that it doesn't hurt, right?
I would think. I would think.
Unless
But
he,
is
like,
there a way? Is there a way to do that?
but like
without
unless he
hurting?
made an exception for like that one time.
He's like, listen, y'all, this is important. I'm going to sacrifice my voice for this one. Let's go.
I love like the place that it puts Maul in at the beginning of the episode, at the beginning of his own end. I just think it's so interesting to
Yes.
to
His character is just really, I said this before, but it's so well written, and especially in this episode, because you can just kind of see like the desperation and like I don't know how to explain it, but it's so well done. It's so well done.
like there's really been like an unraveling.
Exactly. There's like a
happened
descent
over
into
the-
madness going on, more
Yeah.
madness than he was already in.
It's definitely
Um,
happened like over the course of Rebels. So kind of, you know, between
Exactly. And it really does, you know, you said like, yeah,
there's no voices and now there's been a downward spiral.
exactly. And you know, you said it was like the beginning of his end, and like that's a good way to put it, because it's like you can feel him like getting close to like his rock bottom, where you know that this is the end. Like, you know, he's going down, he's been going down the whole time he's been there, and he's gonna hit the bottom, and then that's where he's gonna end, and that's how his character ends. And that opening scene does a good job of setting that up. And like,
yeah, it's so interesting to see him kind of at like the top of this cliff, right? Because we're not really used to seeing him like that. I mean, he got like cut in half that one time, but you know,
at one time got
You know.
cut in half, you know, minor inconvenience.
it's not like we've never seen him with like a questionable amount of sanity before. I mean, I don't think you've seen his return arc in the Clone Wars.
I did. It was a long time ago, but I
Okay.
did see that
Well,
one.
okay, he was struggling there. I'll give him that. That was probably comparable to here, to be completely
Yeah.
fair. But there was also a rise after that. There's no rise.
Exactly.
There's no rise.
There's no rise here.
There's no rise this time. And I think that context, like that context of this like being the end and of this being where he starts at the end, I think
Mhm.
that's interesting. Like his power and influence are just gone.
It's dwindling. It's going away.
Going
Like,
insane in a desert now. Like he calls, you know, he goes and tries to call Obi-Wan a desert rat. He's like, desert rat, you are nothing. And I'm like, bro,
Like-
that's you.
like, sir, about that
That's
takes one to know
you.
one, you know.
So then after that, we see the boy.
The boy,
The
here
boy.
comes the boy.
Here comes the boy.
Hello, boy.
Welcome.
There he is.
Anyway,
He is here. Yes.
I literally saw him and like I started crying because I miss him so much.
I felt that. If you remember,
It's like I don't always realize.
I DM'd you while I was rewatching it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I miss him."
And at the same point when you DM me that, like when I was watching it, I went on my story and I was like, I'm gonna cry. I miss, like we had the same exact reaction to seeing him.
This is completely unsurprising. Completely unsurprising.
We like, it's completely unsurprising.
No, it is.
We're the same person.
And like
But this is
everyone
funny.
watching this, you guys have seen us hanging out together. You know, this is completely unsurprising.
We are maybe the same person.
Yeah, we're definitely variants of each other.
Yeah, maybe this is why I like clones so much. Am one. Of course I know me.
The clone, the clone crisis is actually just your own crisis.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, it's like I know I miss Ezra all the time, but it's also been like 3 years.
Right.
So missing Ezra,
And it's like sometimes you have to.
it just becomes a part of the daily state of being, missing Ezra. Right?
Exactly.
So you kind of forget just how much you miss him because you've been missing him so much.
It's
for
just
so
kind
long.
of there. It's on the back burner. Like it's there, but you're not thinking about it.
Right.
It's not your
And then you
focus.
see him
And then it's just like something in you shatters, and you're like, oh my gosh.
crushing. It's all consuming.
It's just like a weight falling down on your shoulders.
Miss him so much.
I miss him so much.
Rebels has been over for like as long as it was on TV.
Can we not? Oh my gosh.
I have no
Hold
idea
on.
what's happening to Ezra. We haven't a word.
Oh my god.
We know everything about Hera, I guess, and literally nothing about anyone else. Hera keeps coming back, And
Which we love that.
no
Good
word
for
on
her.
anyone else.
But yeah, where is everyone else? I mean, I'm
But that
assuming
has
they're all
to mean-
coming.
That has to mean there's something big coming. The fact that they have not, there's been nothing. The
Exactly.
fact that there's been absolutely nothing tells me that they're going to be really important. So like, okay, maybe I will suffer this much just for Rebels to like take over Star Wars as a franchise.
Exactly. Ahsoka, I'm counting
Exactly,
on
that's what I'm saying.
I'm counting
That's
on you.
gonna be
I'm
a
counting
big
on her.
event. That's gonna be a big event, and Rebels is going to be integral to that more so than the Clone Wars. I said what I said.
You know what? You're right. and you
Rebels is
should say
going to
it.
take over. You know, I'll have to wait. I'll have to be patient.
Exactly.
It'll be worth it. When I see Ezra in live action, like, what am I going to do?
Dude, what?
I have no concept or gauge for as to how I will like one seeing Ezra just older. First off,
That's
just in general.
true.
Whether it
Oh my
was
gosh, seeing
whether
the
it's
fan art of
animated-
that makes me feral.
See, I've been thinking about that one before we even knew like live action shows would be like a thing. I'm
Right.
thinking like, wow, when I see Ezra again, he's gonna be older. He's gonna be an adult.
He's not going to be baby. Here comes
Exactly.
the man.
Here comes adult man. So whether it was animation or live action, seeing Ezra older, that's gonna take me out. If I see him in live action making like facial expressions with a human face that can have all of the nuance of a human face, what am I going to do?
Not to mention, it's going to be Mina Masood's face, and you know he's going to understand the assignment.
Exactly, especially since it's going to be allegedly.
Well, oh yeah, that still isn't confirmed, is it?
Still not confirmed. So allegedly, if it is my king, Mana Masood, what will I do? But anyway.
Anyway.
Oh, the holocrons.
Oh boy, the holocron.
Holocrons. So the holocrons.
They did that, but the way that it was, Maul made it seem that this was like the Force and a vision coming to Ezra telling him what to do, and it was all like Maul's manipulation. Listen, that ooh, because it's like the Force is supposed to be like what a Jedi can trust. Like, you can't trust your feelings, but you can trust the Force. And then to see it like manipulated that way.
This is why
Ooh.
the Sith are not like the other side of balance. This is why.
Exactly. See, and I
This
hate
is
that
why.
argument too. I hate that argument when they're
Right,
like,
the
oh,
whole
but
argument where it's like, if you get rid of the Sith, that's not really bringing balance to the Force. What does that even mean? It is bringing balance to the Force because the Sith are the imbalance.
the Sith are what throw off the balance. They use the Force
Sith
in
are
ways it's
the
not meant to
imbalance.
be used. They use it. They do things like this. They manipulate the Force and make people think the Force is telling them something when it's not. That is not balance.
Exactly. Like the Sith like misuse the Force.
Exactly. They like exploit it. They like have the ability
Right.
to use it.
They're
and
the
they
ones throwing it
them.
off.
Exactly.
They're the ones throwing it off.
The Jedi are like very, very flawed. I'm not going to sit here and say the Jedi are perfect, but I hate the argument that the Sith are better than the Jedi. Just
Not even that they're better than the Jedi, but that they're required for balance. 'Cause
exactly.
that's not what the balance is.
No.
That's not what the balance is. Like the Sith themselves. Like the balance is just about like light and dark both like existing.
Exactly.
The Sith are not like that kind of the dark.
No, they're not.
like-
They're absolutely not.
The Sith are like misusing the Force and using it in ways that are not right.
And it's not meant to be used.
They're the ones messing it up.
Exactly.
That's not to say the Jedi have never messed it up.
No, I mean, like I said, the Jedi are extremely flawed. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like the Jedi are the balance, because they're not.
But there's a reason why the prophecy was like destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force.
Exactly.
Are we going to argue with the prophecy? Anyway, but I'm just saying this makes it like clear, like this is wrong.
Exactly.
This is incorrect.
Exactly. Like, you can't like watch this scene and then still be like, the Sith are supposed to exist and they're supposed to do what they do. Like, they're not.
It really like it freaks me out, and I feel it's worse later.
No,
So
like the whole thing is so uncomfy. It's so uncomfy.
We'll
like,
get there, but it freaks me out.
Same. I am though. It does. I agree. It freaks me out also. I think it's very uncomfortable, but I do think it's like really an interesting way to explore it, and I'm glad that they wrote it that way.
Oh, me too. I'm not saying it in a bad
but
way.
it's definitely, yeah, it's uncomfortable. Like, but like you said, we will
Some
get into
things
that.
are supposed to be.
Exactly. And writing it that way was genius, actually, because of what we've been talking about, because it just shows you, hey, this is why the Sith are not like what we want. Like, that's not a good thing. This is why we need them gone. But like you said, it gets worse later, so more on that later.
We'll get there. We just gotta give a shout out to Rex's single line.
Ezra, no one would like to believe General Kenobi's alive more than I would. But Senator Organa confirmed his death.
Wait, that made me so sad though.
If he's gonna say like one or two things in a whole, why
Why is it that? Why is it that? I had forgotten that line existed. And then you know, I just watched
yeah, you
season
should have
7 of
just
the Clone
gotten
Wars
into like, yeah,
recently. And so seeing that after having watched like, you know, the whole like Siege of Mandalore arc, it hits different.
because you kind of like just now like gotten into the Clone Wars and like those characters. Like,
Exactly. It's like, I mean, I always knew that, like, you know, Rex was like with Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, and he knew that. Like, I knew that,
like,
but
Rex
like knowing it and
until now, though.
experiencing it are different.
Exactly.
So yeah, that hits. It hits. Oh my
Rex
God.
didn't hit for you yet.
I get
So
it.
now you see him on screen and you're like,
Exactly.
like the rest
Or
of
also any clone, because this is what you've done to me. I see any of them and I'm like, this is what you've done to me.
Listen, if I had to suffer, so do you. Then we have Hera being mom.
Oh, absolute mom. Like, there's a reason
That
we call this
conversation
thing
was
mom.
that conversation was interesting. That was actually
It was.
that was interesting. So this conversation, what was going on here? This is interesting to me because Hera is like, Ezra, you can't run off and try to find Kenobi who might not even be alive. She's like, we need you here. She's like, they're attacking. They're going to attack Lothal. We need you specifically because you know Lothal. And Ezra was like, no, I don't think I will. But no, I think it's interesting that like
It is that like
Ezra was being very realistic and Ezra was being very
like idealistic,
but not in like us being the same person.
Yes, us being the same person always.
Always.
But it's true. It's like it's idealistic,
like idealistic, but not like helpfully idealistic.
Right. It wasn't just like optimism. It was like having this vision of something in your head that you're like, this is what's going to fix it. And like having something, this idea, like
this grand idea that you don't really have a plan for, that
and
is
like believing that this idea is the key. And like if you can make this idea come to reality, then everything else is going to be easier and you're not going to have to, it's not going to be as hard and as like crushing on you as it is currently. Because
oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
they needed it to be easier because it's like it's all so big and it's so hard. And so like Ezra gets it in his head like, oh, we need this legendary great Jedi, and then that's going to take all the weight off and it's not going to be hard because that's what we need. That's the key.
I mean,
like
fixating.
He's
like
still fixating on something like this.
This
He's
is
a baby.
Like 17. This is like a 17 years old kind of idealism. Like Hera is an idealist.
Exactly.
Hera's idealistic, but she's also realistic at the same time. I don't think that you could believe in the rebellion that much without being an idealist.
No, I agree. And Hera is always a very hopeful person. Like no matter what's going on, she is always still hopeful. She is realistic. She's not like blindly optimistic, but
that's kind of what Ezra is here.
Exactly.
Ezra sort of being like blindly optimistic and blindly idealistic instead of considering how much like his skills are needed and his knowledge specifically is needed. Like he's needed here.
Exactly.
And he's like, I'm going to ignore my own skill set or whatever. And because I think that there needs to be something greater to help us. Because he's like, I don't know if he really doesn't. You know what? I'm actually going to say this is a good read because this is what Obi-Wan tells him at the end. So I'm going to, when I first watched this part, I was like, I don't know if he really feels this way. But I'm going to mention it.
I see that.
But then Obi-Wan said again, so I think, so I'm going to say it was a good read. I'm going to say it was a good read. I don't think I was
so too. I think it is. I agree.
I think that Ezra's sort of like undervaluing his own skills. He's like undervaluing how much he's needed in favor of like something with more cosmic importance.
Exactly. And it may not even be coming so much from like insecurity like that usually would, but more from just not wanting to have to like bear all of that. Like it feels, like I said, it's like it would take some of like the crushing weight off if he was not needed so badly, and if there was someone else who could be the great hero and hold the weight, you know?
Which is why I wasn't sure about the read at first, because I was like, Ezra doesn't come across as insecure to me.
Right.
I don't think like maybe a little bit, but like not
to that
I don't
extent.
know for it to be driving this.
But it's not really coming from insecurity.
Right, which is why I wasn't sure about it at first. I was like, you know, I'm like picking up on this, but I don't think it comes from insecurity. So I'm like, maybe I'm reaching. But then at the very end, Obi-Wan is like, you have everything you need. You just seem to be like setting it aside for whatever reason. And I was like, oh, so I was right.
When are you not right about these things?
Like literally my deep inherent like personal intimate understanding of every single character I decide to like just the way that I'm the authority on every single character that I decide to like just my mind. I am a genius.
So true.
I am a genius. Anyway.
You are a genius.
It's like he keeps relying on the holocrons. He keeps relying on these like force prophecies or whatever. Like he thinks that he needs something greater to dictate things.
Exactly.
He needs something greater, of greater cosmic importance than his.
It's like he's
like
he's fixating on the idea of like the legendary Jedi and what the stories say they're supposed to be, rather than like the fact that the Jedi are ultimately just people who are using the Force as a tool to accomplish things. And like rather than seeing it as that, the realistic idea of what the Jedi actually are, he's buying into the idea of what the legends say the Jedi were, and he thinks that they need the legend because then like he would, because he doesn't really, you know, he was never around real Jedi besides Kanan. He doesn't really understand that like that's not really what the Jedi were.
And Kanan is so far removed from the Jedi as they were. That honestly, Kanan's not the best source on it either.
Exactly.
Also,
so, like
at the point when Kanan was like telling Ezra stories like that, he was a disaster.
It's true.
You shouldn't even listen to him at that point.
No, it's true.
He was such a mess.
Because
he has
so
like.
This is why Ezra has this kind of like warped idea of what the Jedi should be, and maybe that's where this is coming from. Because
Kanan was still figuring it out, because Kanan was still relying.
Kanan was doing his best, you know.
Started teaching Ezra. When Kanan started teaching Ezra, he was still sort of like
a Padawan himself, technically.
Well, I mean, literally, yes. But if we think about when he started teaching Ezra, he was like spouting off like Jedi-isms where like he didn't even really know what they meant. Like,
I will never forget when he told him
like,
the whole.
He was like, these are like the things that the Jedi say, so that means that's how I have to teach.
I will never forget when he taught him
much importance too, like the legend and the tradition, and
exactly.
He's like, Master Yoda always said that, so I guess I have to as well. Kanan didn't know what
What
he
it
was
meant. He was
talking
like, I
about.
have no idea.
And Kanan
I have no
also
idea.
had such a warped view of the Jedi as well, because he was literally 14 the last time he interacted with them, and he completely as a Padawan up until like his second to last battle, he
Literally.
completely romanticized the idea of Jedi himself. That was for the most part his
Yeah.
relationship to the Order. And the only reason there was any disillusionment was not because of the Jedi themselves. It
No.
was because he started getting shot at.
Literally.
There was
So-
no realistic view of the Jedi. Maybe there was a realistic view of war. That's what happened, a realistic view of war, but not of the Jedi. And
Jedi.
then he's like super traumatized 15 years later. And like, what's he gonna do? He starts like romanticizing the good
Jedi.
parts of the past, and then he passes
Yep.
that on to Ezra because he doesn't know what he's doing.
Exactly. He's doing his best, but you know,
Doing his best. But just
that's why Ezra's like this. That's why Ezra's like, no, my skills are not enough. We need this grand, legendary
that's what Kanan
person.
thought about himself, and Ezra accidentally inherited it because of course he did. Did you even watch Rise of the Old Masters? That's
Of course
literally
he
what
did.
happened.
That's literally what
Because Kanan was projecting his own like shortcomings onto Ezra.
And Ezra latched onto it and took it and was like, okay,
Like,
this
he
is a core
fixed
part
that.
of my
Like, not that
personality
Kanan
now.
didn't fix that, because Kanan did fix that, but
No, he did. This is not us criticizing Kanan that much. Like, we're just saying, you know,
maybe
he
a
had
little
these gifts
bit, maybe a little bit of Kanan
Little
slander
bit.
out of love.
out of love, exactly. But it's
We're
like this was just him like pre-growth, you know, like he grew out of like all of like most of these problems.
Exactly.
But he just
set
wasn't
them
there yet
right
at that
as
time.
well. He set them right as well, you know.
Exactly.
Even at the end of Rise of the Old Masters with the
And this is why he is like universally viewed as one of the best Jedi, because he grew. He believes in growth, which a lot of the Jedi didn't.
literally like one of the best characters in Star Wars.
Literally.
One of the most well-written, developed characters
You said what you said.
in Star Wars. I know I'm right about this.
No, you are absolutely right.
I'm really right about this.
We've reached a point in the fandom where pretty much everybody believes that at this point. And like I love to see that.
Same.
I love
Like,
to
it's
see
not
it.
even a hot take. He just is one of the like most well-written characters in Star Wars. That's not a hot take.
I love that for him.
That was a tangent, but
No, but like we're onto something though. We're onto something.
not a Kanan tangent on an episode where he literally has 3 lines.
You know, it's us. Are we surprised? Are we surprised? It's us. Of course that was going to happen.
And then Ezra yeets away.
He just the way he just zooms for that shit though. Like
Sorry.
he zoom. He got the zoomies. He's zooming.
He said yeet.
when the guy comes over and he's like, hey, you can't take that. And the way he's just like, what? Huh? And he's like acting like he can't shoot.
He goes, that sign can't stop me because I can't
Can't
read.
read. No, this is teenage rebellion at its finest.
At its finest.
At its finest.
At
We love-
its dumbest.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
What came of this? Let's be real.
You know, it was
What
just
came out of Ezra doing this?
a really good episode. That's what.
That's what. And Maul died.
Woo!
Which, I mean, it was a long time coming.
Yeah, you think it was a long time.
It was a long time coming, so
So true.
but like
Yes,
Ezra actually like got nothing out of this except for like
trauma.
a solid talking to from Obi-Wan. You got a solid talking to from Obi-Wan, and that's all he came back with.
You know, that's all he needed. You know,
So-
like I think any like I too would risk it all for a solid talking to from Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It's true. But he really came back empty-handed. Like, what did this even do?
It
For
gave
him.
it taught it
Not,
taught him
it's
his
not for the
lesson.
story, but I mean, I'm just saying this
For
is
him, like, as a
basically at his
person.
dumbest.
No, it's true.
Is I say that lovingly.
Exactly.
I say that lovingly.
No, anytime I call a character dumb, that means they're probably my favorite character. Like I'm
Yeah.
not gonna
like I'm allowed to say that because of how much I love Ezra.
Exactly.
Like, if you think that Ezra is annoying and ruined the show, then you're not allowed to say that.
Exactly.
But we are allowed to say that.
Because we stand him. We're saying
Right,
it out
we've
of love.
been
It's
standing-
like how you gently bully your friends.
Right,
It's just like that.
we've been standing since like day one. We've always been Ezra stans. When Ezra slander was like the trend, when Ezra slander was all you ever heard about Ezra, we were Ezra stans.
Exactly.
We fought in this war. We're allowed to call him dumb. So Ezra yeeted off.
He did yeet off.
Oh, that was really ugly how I said that. I was like, off. That's not even the accent around here. Like, why do I, if I'm gonna have a disgusting accent, it like, why is it not the one that's where I live? Anyway.
He did yeet off though, and Chopper yeeted off with him, which was
Chopper-
quite iconic of him.
So they're in the desert. The best part is when Ezra walks off and he's like, whatever, Chopper, you can do whatever you want, you can follow me, and Chopper just literally goes, and then he goes and follows him.
Such a dramatic sigh for a droid. Like, this is a droid. Why is he doing this?
Why are we putting one of the best comedic beats in the whole series in this episode?
No, it was literally so funny. Just
I
like,
think
just
that
like the
was
drama
funny.
of it all.
I think that was one of like the funniest Chopper moments in the whole series.
I think you're
was
right.
so
And like
good.
it is just so fundamentally Chopper. Like that just sums up Chopper, like his whole personality.
It was a comedic beat that really landed.
It was.
But
True.
anyway, then we don't laugh ever again in the episode.
Pretty much,
Uh,
yeah. Pretty much.
Don't laugh ever again. So next we've got, the image that haunts me at night ever since this aired. Specifically, it is when like Chopper shuts down.
Oh, and he's
and
sitting
Ezra's
there
like-
beside him and he's sitting. Oh my gosh, yeah, no that.
Like what first when he's like, and then when he's sitting next to him.
When he's sitting next to him, that's the one that haunts me, but also the way he
Oh.
hugs him, and like, was it necessary for him to cry on screen about this? Was that necessary?
Was it necessary?
You did not need to do this. You did not need to do this. We understood that it was sad. You didn't have to put us through that.
This is why I was filled with dread every time there was a new episode of Rebels. I was like, why am I crying this week?
I mean, really.
And then the episode would start, and I'd be like, let's find out.
And then something like that would happen, and you'd be like, oh, okay, that's
Like
fine.
after season 1, it was just straight dread every time there was a new episode.
And like
That's actually not entirely true. That was season 4. Like season 4, every single episode, I was like, how am I getting hurt tonight? But anyway.
I'm still thinking about that scene with Chopper though. Like the dialogue Ezra had in that scene, the no, don't do this, buddy, and the this is my fault. I should have just stayed home. And it's like, Ezra, please. Like, why are you doing this to me? Like, for what? For why? What is the reason?
It's just a big sad, a big sad
It is
time.
big sad.
It's
And like
just
I think so much about how he looks so grown up now at this point, like in the season. But then
But,
when
like,
you see
not
that
right away.
shot, but when you see that shot of him sitting next to Chopper, like sitting there, it's like, oh my gosh, that is still a baby. Like that's still a baby.
he's still baby.
Like it's easy to forget because he looks grown. And then you see like a moment like that, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is still a child. Like it just hits. It just hits, you know?
Ezra was incredibly young in this episode, just in general.
It's true.
Just
Just
in
like everything
that he-
about this episode was just like, hey, we changed his design and made him look grown up, but this is your reminder that he's still a kid.
like everything that he like thought and did was just very young of him.
It's true.
Because he's 17.
He's still a kid.
Like I'm older than 17 and I would probably still act like that.
I'm in my 20s and I would probably still act.
He's 7. He's
So,
a child. He's a child, and they were
He's a-
like, "Yeah, I think a 17-year-old should be a lieutenant in this war." Yeah, I think so.
Listen, the rebels were desperate. We've been new. They are taking what they can get. Do you remember the Phineas and Ferb Star Wars episode where they had
course
like
I
a little
do.
fireside? the little fireside girls as pilots. And they were like, we are actual children flying fighter jets or whatever. Like, because like Star Wars itself has never addressed that. And then here comes Phineas and Ferb addressing that. And it's literally Ezra. It's literally Ezra.
Ezra. They were like, you're 17? You're completely untrained for war? You don't know what any of this... Yeah, Lieutenant, nice.
Nice.
Yeah. Like every
They're
time they call him
desperate, yeah.
Lieutenant, it just sends me.
It's just, yeah.
Like
it's,
I know that that's his rank, like I know that, but every time I hear them say it, I'm like
it's just like, wait,
what? What'd you say?
it's like, yeah, no, it doesn't click. It doesn't click in there.
Like
'Cause,
I
like,
know,
that's-
I know that as a fact, but every time that I hear someone be like Lieutenant, I'm like, who are you talking about?
exactly, like what now?
Like I know you're not talking about Ezra.
Excuse me?
So I think this is probably the point when we start talking about Maul and Ezra.
Oh boy.
'Cause
Oh boy.
This the point where like a illusion,
Yeah. Oh man.
he's like
that-
hearing him, or there's just something going on.
Yeah, this is
Oh.
oh yeah.
Maul and Ezra.
This is really
It freaks me out.
same.
Just freaks me out.
Same.
It freaks me
The
out.
way that there's like this weird like sick connection, and like that Maul knows how to exploit it. That it's really interesting to see that like explored. And like I know obviously they kind of toyed with that in the sequels, but like it's a completely different thing with what they did in the sequels. Because this is not like a villain that's like getting a redemption arc or something like that. This is just a villain, period. You know, and having that like
This is
where-
just a grown adult man playing preying on Ezra. So
exactly, and it's very creepy. It's very uncomfy.
very creepy.
And Maul is a creepy character, so it makes sense. He's a creepy dude. But
And
the
it's
way
like-
the way that he uses it to like toy with Ezra's sanity by like making these hallucinations and showing up and making Ezra like jump and attack, and then when he like opens his eyes, there's nothing there. Like that's so
I hate it so much.
I know, it's so sick. Like it makes me feel like I'm losing my sanity, like watching
Like
it.
it totally freaks me out.
No, it's so
He really said gaslight gatekeep girl boss.
he really did. He really did. King of gaslight gatekeep girl boss. This
It
is why
did-
Kira worked for him.
She put the girl boss in gaslight gatekeep girl boss.
So true.
Anyway, it's the way that like it's an entire relationship just built on manipulation. And it's the way that Maul has continued to try to manipulate Ezra even after Ezra has tried to like separate himself from him like multiple
Exactly.
times.
And it's like there's no escape. Like
Right,
that's
and Maul
so
just keeps trying it, and he keeps adapting it to like their changing, like worsening relationship.
right.
Like it freaks me out. The way that
And
this
just,
is
like-
always his tactics, but he'll come up with new tactics to make it work.
And the way that if he hadn't died, like it would not have ended. Like Ezra would not have had an escape. It's not like you can run away from that. Like
He tried.
because he's in his head. Like he
Right.
can't just like run off and disappear and it be gone. Like there's not an escape from it. And
Like
like
Maul will
that,
just always somehow come back to him.
exactly.
It's like it just the way that like even as their dynamic changed, Maul just keeps trying it.
yeah.
Because at first it was like
No.
first he like earned Ezra's trust because Ezra didn't know any better, right?
Right.
So then first they have a good relationship. They have a trusting relationship, and Maul is manipulating him in that context.
Right.
But then they don't. Like
No.
that ends. Ezra's like, he goes away and he's like, no. He does not
and-
want to hang with Maul anymore.
No. And then Maul still finds a way to like
But then
keep
Maul
it
still
going.
tries it.
He
because
doesn't
then
give up.
we've
He doesn't
got-
give up like
Right, because then we've got like visions and voices, and now he's still trying to manipulate Ezra into like at least sympathizing with him or being an uneasy ally
Right.
He's like, he's still trying to get him to be an ally. He's even trying to gain his sympathy with his like
The sympathy thing is so creepy too, because like it's like he knows Ezra is a compassionate person, and so he constantly exploits that to try to earn Ezra's sympathy and make Ezra believe what he's telling him. For that reason, he's playing on Ezra being a compassionate person, and he's counting on that and using it for his manipulation, and it's sick, but it's genius.
They
but
literally
it's sick.
they break the mind link. They break the mind link, and Ezra goes away again.
And he's
And
still
Maul still tries it again, but this time he's not trying to even be Ezra's ally or gain his sympathy or somehow get Ezra on his side. He's given up on that. Now he's just being mean. Now he's like mean things to Ezra to try to like break him down and manipulate him that way.
Listen, there's a reason I hate this man, okay?
It freaks me out.
There's a reason this is my least favorite Star Wars character.
This is predatory behavior.
Literally, like it's
This
so
is
creepy.
predator behavior.
It literally is. It's so creepy. It's so creepy.
And it's like you said, how he's specifically like exploiting his compassionate nature. Like this whole plan was like, I'm just gonna want to help Obi-Wan because he's a good person.
Very predatorial.
It's so predator. Oh my gosh, it just.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's so creepy.
It freaks me out.
Same.
It freaks me out. And like you said, it's the way that Ezra just can't like get away from it. Like
exactly. Like it's not even like
because he's tried to end this relationship multiple times. He's tried
like
to
comparing this to the real world. Like it's not like he can go in the witness protection program, block his phone number, and move on. Like you can't escape because it's in your head. You can't escape from that. Like there's no getting away. And like no matter what he does, they broke the mind link, and Maul is still there and still trying. So there's no way to escape from that. It's the Phantom of the Opera. He'll always be there singing songs in your head.
Why does Maul actually give me phantom energy?
No, he does have phantom energy, but like I don't know how I feel about Ezra being
okay.
Christine.
I like the Joker is to like incels what the Phantom would be to Maul. Like the Phantom like would be Maul's Joker. You know what I mean? Like the Joker is to like men on Reddit what the Phantom would be to Maul.
No, it's literally true, but that's just so specific. That's such a specific comparison. But it's so true. I can just see Maul going onto like Phantom Tumblr and typing out like an essay about why the Phantom did nothing wrong. Like
I can't breathe. Okay. Also, I think I've actually probably said this before in my life, but Maul is a theater kid.
Yes.
I think I have actually said this before in my life. This is not a new take, but Maul.
No, but like you're right. I think almost every Sith or former Sith is a theater kid.
They're all theater kids. Anakin's
theater kid. Palpatine's theater kid. They're all theater kids.
Anakin has actually like canonically jumped on stage to like take over a part in a play. It was a part of like a plan to capture someone, but he still did it. So now Anakin is not like a like theater kid. Like Anakin is like the jock who got like cornered into being the lead in the musical. Yeah, that's Anakin. That's the kind of theater kid that Anakin is.
Still got the drama of it though. Is Vader a theater kid though?
Yes, but now Maul on the other hand, Maul is actually a theater kid. And
on
he's
all levels except physical, Maul is Ryan from High School Musical.
Right, I was about to say, I was literally thinking the same thing. Wait, shut up, because I was literally thinking that Maul is Ryan from High School Musical.
He's not Ryan, he's Sharpay.
You're right. He's a Sharpay. He is a Sharpay.
And Anakin is Troy.
Yes. But anyway, Maul is a theater kid who's like didn't get the part, which is why that was his villain origin story. So that was really important discourse. So I guess at this point, Ezra meets Obi-Wan.
Yes, which I love everything about this. I love everything about this. I forget who the voice actor was. I tried to look it up and I didn't. Yes. He was so good.
legend.
Yeah, so he was phenomenal. You wouldn't even know that wasn't just Obi-Wan from the original trilogy. You wouldn't know.
Didn't know. It was a spot on impression.
Incredible.
Incredible.
Also, just in general, the way Obi-Wan's character is handled in this episode is really good, because it's like this era where, you know, you need to be closest to like original trilogy Obi-Wan. But we have so much more content of Obi-Wan to work with the prequels and the Clone Wars era. So like we know him from that era better than we know the original trilogy era. And so seeing how well they like wrote his character and like handled it for being the era that we're less familiar with, like, and it's like they're so limited in like content to go off of and say, oh, this is what he would say, this is how he would act. They're so much more limited, and yet they did like a really good job with it. Like they just did a really good job with it. I love it. Like it literally, like it, you could be watching a scene from the original trilogy. Like you could just be watching a scene and like it all fits like perfectly. The voice acting, the writing, all of it, it just all fits.
Yeah, I love the way that Obi-Wan was handled in this episode, and I love the conversation he has with Ezra.
Same.
It's just so good. Like it's literally what I was saying earlier. I just love it when things that I think are validated. And I love how we said that he had no intention of fighting Maul.
No, I know. He was not going to do it.
But he just said it's inevitable now. It's the only reason.
Which is so sad because Ezra's like, oops. Sorry.
Yeah, Ezra's like, sorry, Bessie.
Ezra's like, oopsie.
I mean, look, Ezra done messed up in this episode, but that's okay.
No, he did. Obi-Wan was very nice about it. Obi-Wan did not like blame him for it. And you know, good for him. Good for him.
But I do love what he tells Ezra. Just generally everything he tells Ezra, I think is really interesting. Like first when he tells Ezra like what you need, you already have, but you're letting it go. That was interesting, first of all, because that was kind of being like what I was saying.
It's validating your take.
Right, like Ezra just feeling the need to rely on something greater than himself. And he's already enough. He doesn't have to do that. He's already enough.
Exactly.
Which is spot on, because he runs into the same problem in season 4.
Mm-hmm.
He runs into the same problem when Kanan dies. So it tracks at the very.
It does track. It's like part of his character. It's very in character for him to be this way.
And arguably the most interesting thing that Obi-Wan says is that the whole thing with like the holocrons, how like it was not what any of us thought. We were under the same impression that Ezra was under, that, you know, Obi-Wan was
exactly
the key to all of this. This is what the holocrons are saying, that Obi-Wan is the key to this, that
and then instead it was just like Obi-Wan knew exactly. He was just like, no, Maul, that was Maul. Maul did that.
Right. And he was like,
I have the line in my notes that Maul used your desire to do good to deceive you. That hit.
Like you heard what you wanted to hear and you believed what you wanted to believe.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Which I just thought was interesting as a conversation about like the Force in general. Because it's not that black and white.
Exactly. It's not.
It is more mysterious than that. When it comes to the Force, it's not all like black and white like that. And I just think it's like interesting that all of us were deceived by this.
Exactly. And I'm actually really glad that this wasn't a situation where they like let the audience in on it beforehand. Because sometimes shows do that. Like the audience is in on it before the characters are. But I'm glad they didn't do it that way, because it's like you said, it was really interesting when like Ezra realizes that and we realized that too. And it's like, oh my gosh, we fell for it too. Like we were all along for the ride.
Like that was just an interesting point to bring up.
It was a cool take.
An interesting plot point. And
it was just once again showing how is the worst. You know? Because he was doing that. It was all about the manipulation, you know?
And this is why Ezra has to be in this episode.
Exactly.
Why it has to focus on Ezra. Like how many times have you seen people be like, why was Ezra in this episode? He ruined it. It would have been so good without him. I've even seen people been like, Kanan should have been the main character of the episode instead.
But that wouldn't make any sense.
What would that have done?
It wouldn't have made any sense. Why would Kanan have been there in the first place?
And or there's like, it should have been just Obi-Wan and Maul, like Ezra ruined it, Ezra shouldn't have been there, like Ezra didn't do anything for the episode. This is why Ezra had to be in this episode. Okay, first of all, he's the main character of the show.
He's the main character.
He's the main character, so he's gonna be in the episode. He's the main character. Second of all, for that scene right there, this is why he had to be in the episode.
Exactly. Like
This
narratively,
episode
no
was
one else would have made sense. Like having Kanan as the main character for that episode
Would
would not have made sense.
It would
Like,
have done nothing.
narratively, there would have been no reason for him to be there in the first place because he wouldn't have gone there like Ezra did. And then when he got there, it would have been way less satisfying because that conversation that Obi-Wan had that was so good only works with Ezra specifically.
Because at this stage, I think Obi-Wan best works as a teacher, as a mentor.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's going on at this point.
Right, because we're closer to the original trilogy era. You know, we're preparing him to be Luke's teacher. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing like the seeds of that.
Like
so
he's very wise now. He's now watching over Luke. He's going to eventually teach Luke. He's
exactly.
And most importantly, like he's reflected on his mistakes of the past,
And he's
which now
learned
puts him in the position to actually be a mentor.
Exactly.
Not that he didn't do his best in the past. Not
He
that
did do his best, but he was
But the
he was-
circumstances under
Exactly.
which he became a master were terrible, not just for him, but also for Anakin.
he was thrown into being a master before he was ready for it. And he did the
Exactly.
best he could with that. But I mean,
did
the
he
best-
want to? Did he even want to? No. He
No.
did it because Qui-Gon said so. He did it out of
Exactly.
duty. He did it out of a sense of duty and loyalty to his master who had passed away. This was not
Exactly.
like other Jedi who rise up through the order and they reach a point where it's like, yes, it is now my time to take on a Padawan. Obi-Wan was like basically still a kid and his master died. His master, when he was dying, was like, train the boy. And he was like, well, guess I have to now.
Exactly. It was obligation. That's like, and he did the absolute best he could, you know, he really did.
And that's
But
not
he
a good
was
situation for Obi-Wan or Anakin.
exactly. It was just not good. And that's why I see it's like you said, when he reaches this era, this is the point where if none of the events of the prequels had happened, like they all just lived ordinary, normal Jedi lives, this is the point when he would like take on a student. Like
at this point, he can reflect on that past and he can reflect on his past as like his situation of being a master. He can just reflect on the war in general and his role in it, his prominent role in it. And he's very wise now.
exactly.
So he should be in the role of a mentor and a teacher. And there's no other character who would allow for that to happen except for Ezra.
Exactly. Plus, it's just the fact that Ezra is here. He's right at the same age as Luke. You know, it's like it's setting up for him mentoring Luke eventually. And like it would not have been the same if it was Kanan or somebody else. It would not have been the same.
Exactly.
It was very important for it to be Ezra.
And I think it was also just important because look, at the end of the day, the show is Star Wars Rebels, of which Ezra is the main character.
Exactly.
So the story has to serve him at the end of the day. It can do other things. It can do other things.
Right. But like you can't have a show that's like not about your main character at its core.
Like we are working within the context of this being an episode of Star Wars Rebels. And if it's an episode of the show Star Wars Rebels, it's going to be serving the characters of Star Wars Rebels.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, when there's a cameo, when there's a guest character, that character is going to be there to serve the characters of Star Wars Rebels.
Exactly. Like it's all the whole plot of Star Wars Rebels, while it is big and it has these big effects on Star Wars as a whole, ultimately story. Like it's all going to center around him. He is the main character. So it would not make sense for him to not be the one who's there, or like for the episode to happen and like no one from Star Wars Rebels be there. Like that's an episode that would be an episode of the Clone Wars. That would not be an episode of Star Wars Rebels.
So Ezra has to be there
Yep,
because
I
of
agree.
what the episode does for Ezra. Because it is an episode of Star Wars Rebels.
Exactly.
So Ezra has to go through this point in his arc where he learns that he can trust in himself and he doesn't have to trust in things greater than himself, and that it's not always a good idea to trust in things greater than himself. They've tried to teach him this lesson multiple times. Something had to drive it home.
Exactly.
This is a point in Ezra's arc that had to happen.
Exactly.
So that's why the episode is here.
That's why it exists. Like
That's why it's here. The episode is about Ezra because it's an episode of his show. That's why he had to be the main character.
It's his lesson to learn. Like
He was not the side character in this episode because
No.
it's his show.
honestly, we're just lucky that they gave us the scenes of like Obi-Wan and Maul when Ezra
Right.
wasn't
No,
there.
that was like, you
Like-
know, like a solid side quest of the episode, like
That was like
resolving Obi-Wan and Maul. Now that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
That is also a purpose of the episode, but it's also an episode of Star Wars Rebels where that just
Exactly.
happens to also happen in it. But speaking of that,
There we
that
go. That. Oh my gosh, literally that.
now this is not only a series high. I'm going to say this is a franchise high.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And you just say just everything about that scene, everything about it. We talked about the rat in the desert line, but what we haven't talked about was Obi-Wan's response to that. The look what I've risen above. Oh, like it's so powerful. Like it speaks volumes about Obi-Wan's character that after everything he's gone through and where he's ended up, that's how he sees it. That's how he chooses to see himself, as rising above everything that has happened and ending up where he is now. Like that is so powerful. That says so much about his character and like the arc that he has been through and the growth he has had as a character. And it is so powerful. It is so powerful.
And just the whole back and forth is amazing. Like I'm looking at it right now, and
Yes.
what you just said, rat in the desert, look what I've risen above. But then, when Maul is like, I've come to kill you, but perhaps it's worse to leave you here festering in your squalor, because that's how Maul sees it. But then Obi-Wan's comeback with, if you define yourself by your power to take life, a desire to dominate, to possess, then you have nothing. Their back and forth is so good and so completely based in who they are.
Who they are as characters. Exactly.
Because Maul is like, you look at everything. I mean, I guess he didn't really do much in the Phantom Menace, but we'll look at the Clone Wars and we'll look at Rebels, where he actually has character traits, and Maul is obsessed with like power and authority, and he's arrogant. So he does look at Obi-Wan here, and he thinks you have nothing, because what is Maul had? Maul's had like a crime syndicate and like the throne of Mandalore, and that's what he thinks like importance is.
That's what gives him like value. That's what he
chases. He chases power and authority and people that you can control. And so he looks at Obi-Wan, who's like chilling in the desert, and he's like, oh, you're nothing. You are nothing. You have nothing. And Obi-Wan is like, look inside yourself, because you actually have nothing. Because that's what nothing is to Obi-Wan. Nothing is,
exactly. There's so much like contrast, like between their characters in this whole scene. And there's always been like this contrast between them. They've always been like opposites. But this scene like shows it at its peak, because we see Obi-Wan as this like calm, wise person who like knows and understands himself and understands what gives him value and all this stuff. And then we have Maul, who is like hit his rock bottom. It's like the peak of the contrast between the two of them.
Like the writing of this scene is absolutely incredible, because it's
phenomenal.
Literally everything these two characters say and do, it's literally everything. Every single line they say and every single like movement they do is not wasted. Every single thing they say and do is like it all has a purpose. Like you can tell that they wrote literally all of it thinking about who they are and writing it based on that. Every single thing.
Exactly.
It's incredible. Like the whole
It
back
really
and
is.
forth, just like completely showing like who they are on the inside, and then the fight, and not just who they are, but also like what their relationship is.
Yes, it's because it's like these two characters have been through so much, like not together, but like at the hands of each other. You know, like they've been this yin and yang like for so long, and like for that to reach its end and its peak and to come to fruition like this, like you have to have understanding of who both of their characters are individually, but also what their dynamic is to each other and their connection to each other. And like the way that the writing captured all of that, and not just the writing, every, like you said, the movements, it was like literally like the writing, animating, voice acting, every element was working together.
Like how did they even like do this? How did they pull this off?
How did they pull this off?
Like you even
like this is not something that should exist.
Like how do you create something? How do you create something with so much care and detail?
Like I could never. Like, I can't even.
Good.
It is so good. It's so
like even like the fight itself, the movements in the fight. Everyone has probably seen like some version of Sam Witwer breaking this down.
As he should.
And it's amazing. It's like it's completely astounding. Just literally every single movement.
It was all like I remember when it first came out, like before a lot of the intention behind it was known, and people were just mad that it was like so short and like over so quickly.
I loved it.
But it's like I loved it too. But like, and especially once some of like more of the intention behind it was understood, and like realizing that it was very intentionally made short like that. Like that was not the animators not wanting to animate a battle scene. Like it was very intentional, because
like, once you know the meaning behind it, you really can't knock it. Like you really, it's airtight.
Because it's everything about their characters. Like in this final moment, you have perfectly summing up everything about their characters and their whole relationship throughout the entire franchise up to this moment. It's all summed up in that short few seconds of battle. Like and that's why it was so short. It had to be like that, because I mean it was genius.
And I think one of my favorite things about it is how much time is spent on like gearing up for the fight versus the fight itself. More time is spent with their like back and forth and them sizing each other up than the actual fight, which most of the fight happens in the mind. Most of the fight happens in their minds, because on the first part, you know, them going back and forth with each other, now that's a part of the fight. That's the way that they're gonna like Maul's gonna try and psych Obi-Wan out, you know, before this fight. So that's a part of the fight. That is,
and it's because these two characters know each other so well and have gone through so much with and against each other. They have this deep understanding of each other. It does
happen in the mind because
it's all in the head.
Because of how well they know each other. They know each other so well. This fight happens in the mind. The whole fight is already over before it begins. Exactly. Obi-Wan knows that. Obi-Wan finished the fight in his mind before Maul even made the first move.
Exactly, because
which is why it's so short. Which is why it's so short, because Obi-Wan knows Maul so well that he already starts and finishes the fight in his head. Because
he already knows what he's going to do. Exactly.
He doesn't want to fight Maul. He doesn't want to. But it's inevitable.
He just wants it to be done. You know, he didn't want any of this. He had no intention of fighting him. He said that. Like he's not in this for some like grand fight. He just wants it to be over.
Right. And those seconds when they're sizing each other up are so incredible. And just everything that's been like revealed about the thought process behind it, where, you know, he starts his instinct is to go into, you know, the position that we all know from the prequels. But then he's like, no, I'm not that guy anymore. That, you know, that guy, I made mistakes and I know what those mistakes are and I'm not him anymore. And then he goes into the position of, you know, the original trilogy. And this is who I am now. I know, you know, because he, you know, looks at Maul. Yeah. And he forgets who he is for a second.
Exactly.
Wouldn't you?
Exactly. Like when because there's been so much development with Maul that, like, of course it's gonna like take him back, like for a second there.
But then it's like, no, that's not who I am anymore. Maul does not have. I'm not gonna let him have that power over me.
He doesn't have that
power over me. He's not going to make me someone who I used to be. So he's like, I know who I am now. And then the best part, when he decides how the fight ends, when he goes like this, and he decides how the fight ends right there by, you know, going into the Qui-Gon pose.
And the way he knew exactly what Maul would, he knew that Maul would fall for that.
He knew that Maul would he would see this and Maul would subconsciously, he'd be like, I know what to do, and he would go for the move that he tried against Qui-Gon. Obi-Wan was, you know, like coaxing him into doing that. He was shaping the fight and it worked. And Obi-Wan saw it coming and then he finishes the fight.
Honestly,
like, how do you, that was literally Obi-Wan's like entire history in 3 battle poses. How do you even think to do that? How do you even think?
How do you come up with that?
How do you even, like, as a writer, how are you like, I'm going to recap the entire character arc of Obi-Wan in 3 movements.
Literally, like, as a writer, I want to know. Like, I want to know how you come up with that. I need to know, like, for science, like, how do you just like think of that? Like,
I will not hear Dave Filoni slander. No, I wouldn't even hear it. Like, is he perfect all the time? No. Is he fallible? Yes, he is. But I'm not going to hear anyone say that he's like not a good writer, or like he's losing it, or that like he's overrated and he should not be praised that much, because when he can write that, when he can do that, I won't even hear it. That's like,
no, exactly.
How do you even write that anyway? And then even after the fight,
after the fight gets me.
The writing continues.
Just, like, the way he just catches him and he just holds it, and it's like the strength of character that it takes. This is the man who murdered Satine right in front of him.
And Qui-Gon. And the way that it visually calls back to both of those things.
Holds him in his arms the same way he holds both
same
of them.
way he holds, right.
And just like the strength of character that it took to do that. And it says so much about Obi-Wan. Like, it does so much. And it's just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal, and this is why we all love Obi-Wan so much. This is why.
It also says so much about Maul, because one of Maul's like last words here, even after he's kind of come around and he's sort of, you know, in his last moments, he's now like united himself with Obi-Wan. He's, you know, and I think you said this in your note, that they're both like victims.
I did say this.
You did say that, right? Your mind.
In the end, they have been complete opposites for like their entire lives. They still are. But then when it comes down to it, at the end, despite being opposites in like every way, ultimately they are both just victims of the Sith. They're both people that had everything taken from them from the Sith. Like,
and that's going to be true of any Sith, by the way. That's such an interesting, it's just so interesting that you bring that up. Because I mean, that's not something that's like under the surface with Maul. I mean, that's something that that's something he's actually said in words in the series, that the Sith taken everything from him. But I just think it's interesting that that would be true of literally any Sith.
It's true. And then in the end,
which is what that's what we're talking about with the whole thing about balance and the Sith being the imbalance. It's just like that, because the Sith think, you know, they think that they're going to get everything by being a Sith, and instead they end up
lose everything.
Absolutely nothing.
They lose
everything. On the inside, they end up with nothing. I just think it's interesting. Anyway,
no, it is. And that in the end, like in completely different ways, they're both in the same position, because Obi-Wan lost pretty much everything to the Sith too, but in a completely different way, you know? So it's like they're still opposites, but these opposite journeys and opposite beliefs have put them in the same position at the end. Like, and that's why when Maul says the line, he says he will avenge us. It's us, because he recognizes that. He recognizes, oh, we're both victims here. Like, Obi-Wan was never his enemy. Obi-Wan was never his enemy. Like, that's what it comes down to.
And then the other interesting thing about that line is that even in that moment of this sort of like revelation, this sort of change of perspective, Maul is still Maul. He hasn't learned his lesson, because his very last
it's still about revenge.
About vengeance. It's still about vengeance, which is what it has always been about, which has always brought his downfall. He's been compared to Sisyphus by, I think, multiple people who actually work on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what he just keeps pushing the boulder back up the hill.
Exactly. It's true.
He's literally never going to stop. Even like literally his dying moment proves that he did not learn his lesson. No. He is literally Sisyphus. He would keep pushing the boulder back up the hill.
Exactly. Like if he
had a moment, it's still about vengeance to him. He hasn't.
He had somehow lived in that moment. If he had survived and like gotten up and gone on, he would have just started it all over again. Like it would have kept going, because he did. You're right. He did not learn his lesson. And I guess a lot of that just shows like what the Sith do to a person. He's been a Sith for so long, and they have like so fundamentally been a part of who he is as a person, that in the end, this is all he is. It's all he cares about is vengeance. And that is a belief of the Sith, that even though he hates the Sith, it's been so ingrained into him that at his core, he still is one of them, because that's what they do to a person. That's what they do to you.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting to see a Sith who is complex but does not have a redemption arc.
It is. Because
that was really, and I'm going to say that he's not redeemed. I'm going to say that he does not have a redemption arc, because I think there has been some conversation about that, about whether or not he has any kind of redemption in his final moments. And I think that Sam Witwer actually specifically refused to answer a question about that, because it should be open to interpretation. And my interpretation is that he's not redeemed.
I agree. Because like ultimately he was still caught up on vengeance, which is still a very Sith-like thing to be caught up on.
And so, I think redemption would require some kind of like act of redemption, but all he did was try to kill Obi-Wan, and he failed. Exactly. And that was the last thing he did. The last thing he did.
And if he had lived, like, you have to ask yourself, like, if he had lived, would he have stopped?
No,
he wouldn't.
No.
Even if he stopped going after Obi-Wan, which I don't necessarily think he would, but even if he did, he's still caught up on vengeance on someone. He's still going to be doing the same thing. He'd just be changing his target.
He's still going to be trying to manipulate and grab power and again push the boulder back up the hill. It's what he
up the hill.
Do. Did Sisyphus ever stop pushing the boulder up the hill? No. That's what Maul would keep doing no matter what. He's always going to go back to no matter how many times he fails, because he always does. Because all Maul really does at the end of the day
is fail.
I mean, he's reached some heights. He has. He's reached some heights.
But it always comes back down to failure. It's always short-lived.
He didn't maintain them. So this was just his last act of failure. It's what it was. He just failed again like he always did, except this time he died doing it. So I don't think it's a redemption. I don't think that Maul really actually changed all that much fundamentally. I mean, he ended this like vendetta against Obi-Wan.
It's like I said, he changed his target. He didn't change who he was. He just changed who his target was. Like he had his moment of realization that Obi-Wan was never his enemy, but that doesn't mean he's going to give up on the idea of vengeance and getting what he feels he's owed.
And even in those last moments, it's like Obi-Wan became like his legacy of getting vengeance. He's like, you will avenge us. He's like, you will live on after me and get my vengeance.
Exactly.
Like it's like literally in his dying moments, he's still like, this is my plan to get vengeance. It's you. He still didn't stop.
Yeah, no. So this is not a redemption.
I personally don't think it's a
No,
redemption.
It's not.
but
It's very interesting. It's very complex character arc. It's a fantastic
which
character arc.
typically
It's not a
does
redemption
end
arc.
in redemption. So I think it's really cool for it to not be like a clear redemption, because complexity usually breeds sympathy, because when they're complex, it means that you can understand them and why they are the way that they are.
Exactly.
And then usually when you get an audience to understand a character, you then want that character to be good in the end.
Exactly.
Be redeemed. And Maul's just not really.
No, and
Maybe
like
you could interpret it that way, but it's not like a clear redemption,
exactly. And it's such a cool take to have it be that way.
And that's just so
You don't see
interesting.
it that often.
To have a
I agree.
character like a character who is complex and you do understand them, and there are even points that are sympathetic, but there's just no hope. Like
It's like
not
to quote our king Tech, it's understanding you does not mean agreeing with you. And that's exactly Maul's arc. We understand him, but we don't agree with him.
And we never do.
We never do.
And I guess another thing that I thought was interesting about his end here is like, it's just how like insignificant he felt. Like, is that just me?
Yes. No, like it's true. Like it just feels like, because at the end, like what happens because of it? Like what does his death cause? Absolutely nothing.
He feels like
what does
he's
it
nothing.
mean? What does it mean for the world, for the galaxy? Nothing.
It's not like he's nothing. He's nothing anymore. He used to be. He used to be something. He used
Exactly.
to.
And I saw that in your notes, and I loved that take because it's true. In the end,
right. And
nothing.
initially, before I knew anything about the thought process behind their fight and why it was the way it was, initially the things that I picked up on were, okay, one, it felt like very like samurai, which I was like, that is very Star Wars, nice.
Yes.
So I put that. But then the other thing, I was like, well, yeah, it should be that fast because like Maul is nothing anymore. He's
exactly. He's
not
insignificant.
He's insignificant. He's significant to us just because he is to us,
you
as
know, exactly.
viewers.
We have like a history with him as viewers.
But in the context of the story, he's nothing. And I think that it was important to actually drive that home because he used to be important. He's been in important positions in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I like highlighting how far
not anymore.
And just in the whole episode, it's like, it's the desperation and the obsession that kind of makes him feel so insignificant, as well
Which
as
is what
very
we see,
quick
and that
death.
ties back to the beginning of the episode with that opening monologue where you can see he's hitting rock bottom with this desperation. He's at
He's
the
alone.
desperation. It's pathetic. Like you hear the desperation and it's pathetic. You feel sorry for him because you're like, oh my gosh, like this is absolutely pathetic. Like this poor guy.
That's
like,
just sad.
Exactly. And so like that ties
Like,
right back to the ending when he dies and it's completely insignificant because he's fallen to a point that he's not really anything to us except pathetic.
Right. And this was just one last desperate grab at achieving something, at being,
and then it failed, and like he died as nothing. He died, and he really has a like you said, he's been in like these great successful positions, but like in the long run, what has he done that's going to last? Like what impact has he had on the galaxy that the only thing he ever did that lasts was killing Qui-Gon, really. I mean, that's even the only
Qui-Gon figured out how to become a Force ghost, so
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Of all the guys to kill, he picked literally the single guy who figured out how to preserve his consciousness. Out of literally everyone in the Jedi Order, he was the only, like, he was the guy who figured that out and then had to teach it to other people as a Force ghost. Like, he taught it to like Obi-Wan and he taught it to Yoda because he figured it out. Like, of all the people you're going to kill, it's going to be the guy who invented Force ghosts.
Exactly. Oh
Like
my
of
gosh.
all the guys you're gonna kill, it's gonna be that guy. It's gonna be the one guy who knows how to preserve his consciousness.
That is classic Maul though. That's classic Maul. He's just at his core, he is just a failure. That's just
Like,
who
no,
he is
literally,
as a
like,
person.
I think that like Sam Witwer, Dave Filoni, or someone has literally talked about this before, like kind of in relation to like this Sisyphus comparison.
Yeah.
That's just what he does. He just fails and he doesn't learn from it. That's all he does. He fails and he doesn't learn from it. And he fails again and he doesn't learn from it. And that's what he did now. And I think him feeling so insignificant at the end really just drives home the fact that like he is a failure, which is
Exactly.
that's just what he is.
It's what he is, exactly. And that goes back to what we were saying about how this wasn't a redemption arc, because again, that's who he is. He fails and he does it all over again. That's what he
Right.
he just keeps failing and keeps trying again. That's another reason why I don't believe this was a redemption arc, because if he had Lance, he just would have done it again, because that's
Like, all
who he is. It's what he does.
And that's what he did here too, except he just happened to die. But
So
he
we couldn't see the evidence of him not learning from it, but he didn't.
But we could, because his last words were still about vengeance, and that tells us that he didn't learn from it.
Exactly.
He failed in the fight against Obi-Wan, and then he didn't learn from it.
And this is why he is such an interesting character. This is why, despite the fact that I hate him, I can't stop thinking about him.
Like that.
This is why.
That was just his final act of failure and not learning from it. That was just that was just the last one.
Yeah,
he didn't learn, and I just think he feels so insignificant, but like very appropriately insignificant.
Exactly. It's all intentional. It's all exactly how we're supposed to feel about him at the end. The writers knew what they were doing. And it's all about what his character is. And in the end, that ending perfectly like encapsulates everything about his character. Like no big finish dramatic ending ever would have understood Maul's character the way this ending did.
Like a masterpiece.
A masterpiece.
This episode, everything about this episode is so good. Like the voice performances, the character develop, like the character understanding on all fronts, like
just every little piece. Also the cinematography.
The cinematography was amazing.
Like everything about this episode, every little piece just fit together and just made a complete masterpiece.
Even the story structure beats.
I mean, right? It's so true.
They were hit like so powerful. Like there was really like, this is its own story. This really had its own like story.
Like little arc.
They hit they hit the beats of a story like really powerfully, I think.
It did. It's true.
Like it stands alone pretty well, as long as you know a little bit of context about Rebels. I think that you could just go and be like, I want to watch a thing, and you could just watch this by itself and feel satisfied about having like watched a thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's really true. It's a very self-contained story.
Right. Like not completely self-contained, because I mean it is like in the context of Rebels. Like it's not just
right. But like if you go in and you know the context, like you don't have to watch the rest of Rebels to appreciate it. You just have to know what the context. Like, are you gonna appreciate it more if you've watched and liked Rebels? Of course you are. But like if you go in just knowing the context and you haven't watched it, you're still gonna appreciate it. You don't have to watch it.
Yeah. And I think this was just, I really like the place it's in the like in the season, like just this penultimate episode of season 3. I don't think it's exactly what we expect.
No, it's not, but it's perfect.
Like episodes leading up to the finale, but I love that placement of it.
No, it was the perfect. It really was. It was the perfect place for it. It was like tying up this whole storyline that's been going on.
Yeah,
and like
because
getting
Maul
ready.
was season 3.
Exactly.
Maul
so it's like you're
at
tying
the end of season 2, which set up season 3.
Exactly.
You know, now that I say that out loud, I think that Ezra's dark side arc was actually not about the dark side. It was actually about Maul.
Actually, that's really true.
Because we all
would that have even happened without Maul's influence? No.
Because we're all like, they didn't play out the dark side arc enough. Like it didn't go on for long enough. They fixed it too fast. Like there should have been more.
But that's because it's like you said, it was about Maul.
Let's consider the fact that the dark side arc was not actually about like Ezra struggling with the dark side. It was just about this twisted relationship to Maul, and that was one of the side
It
effects.
was, again, the
That was
manipulation.
one of the side effects of it. That was just one part. So maybe it wasn't really about Ezra and the dark side. Maybe it was really about Ezra and his connection to these things in the Force that are greater than he is, and trying to navigate his connection to things in the Force greater than he is, and how there's, you know, the dangerous side of it with both the Sith holocron, with the dark side, and with Maul.
Exactly.
As, like, separate things. And then also things like the Jedi holocron and like Obi-Wan, that's another side of it, of him, you know, navigating these things in the Force of greater cosmic importance than he is.
Exactly.
Another thing that this episode does, it ties that up for Ezra, which has also been an ongoing thing this season. I like this, and I like the way that it sends us into the finale on this note.
I agree. I think it was a perfect note to like end the main action of the season that sends you into the finale, which is setting up for the next season. Because that's kind of what Rebels does. The finale tends to set up for the next season. So and I think it was the perfect way to do that. Like, it wasn't some kind of big, lots of times like penultimate episodes like that are like big spectacle, you know, leading up to the finale. But I like that this one wasn't like that. I like that this was this
Rebels does
really
that
character. That's why I love Rebels. That's why Rebels supremacy.
Rebels supremacy. And even with like the very ending of Ezra coming back to the Ghost crew, and hold on, what does he say? You're my family and we should go home.
I'm gonna cry.
That was the very ending of the episode, right? That right there, and they all put a
that wasn't the very ending. The very ending
that was the
one seeing Luke.
Right. Okay. Right. But as far as our Rebels characters are concerned,
that's the ending. Yes.
That was the ending. And that's what's sending us into the finale, which that's the perfect thing to send us into the finale.
It's the perfect thing to send us into
the finale. You're my family and it's time to go home. Because there was the whole struggle with like Ezra's arc this season, like the really dramatic beats of it were really about like his connection to Maul, and how Maul was kind of, you know, he's like my apprentice, and sort of being this like super toxic like uncle figure, you know. He's like trying to be Ezra's like abusive dad, I guess. Yeah. Just sort of this like very like resolutely like that connection, that relationship, that's gone. You're my family and it's time to, you know. And when he's like, and we should go home, it's like, it's time to stop trying to find other things, stop trying to go other places, stop trying to find other people.
Go
he's
home.
Like, now I'm going to do what I need to do because I am enough to do it. He's like, we are enough to do it. They don't need anything greater. They don't need, you know, like the holocrons. They don't need Obi-Wan. They don't need Force prophecies. They're enough. And now Ezra's finally in a place where he's worked through all of that he's been dealing with this season. And now he's going to go and do what he needs to do. And he's finally ready to do that. And it's just, that was just such a good way to send us in the finale. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up. 0 hour next time. Be there or be square. I'm going to have another special guest with me. So we're having fun at the end of the season.
Heck yes.
Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you always.